Good evening, people. Welcome to another edition of Life is People. This week, with my great honour to have with me my friend and amigo, Ryan Martin. How you doing, man?
Hanging out, Tim, hanging out.
That's good, my man. I'm very honoured to have, even after last week's technical issues, the wonders of the internet, my dear friend, and I think I can say that now, Adia Aira. How are you doing tonight?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm really good. Really looking forward to having this podcast. We've been kind of bigging it up for a few weeks, and I think we're really excited about your whole concept, project, idea, whatever you want to call it. And well, I think the first place to start with is where did this idea spawn from? Where did it come from?
It came from many places. It started out as a fictional idea, just a place in a story that I was creating when I was much younger, about 8. And I needed an origin story and a location, and I had this idea for this really neat village. And I was learning about alternate technologies early on, like rainwater collection and solar energy, and I always wondered, how come nobody uses these things? They clearly work. It sounds like they work. It all makes sense. And um, as I got older, like after high school, I started looking for this place that I had in my imagination, hoping. I was like, I've heard of communes and things of that nature, and I've heard of art schools but I mean, there were art schools that only did one art or 3 arts, and that was it. And I wanted to do so many things. Um, and so eventually the idea went from a fictional location with all these interesting pieces of technology put together to a place that maybe I should build it in real life, because I can't seem to find it anywhere. And artists need some support. They need love in the world. They don't get enough. There's a lot of rinse and repeat um, art that's really just made to make money. And so all of these factors came together and gave me the idea to just go ahead and make this in real life and make it something that can be shared with everyone, but also make it so that there can be clean food and clean energy, clean water, just a clean lifestyle in general. And I believe this would make talented artists much more healthy artists, and that much more talented. So.
Well, yeah, I tend to agree with you because I mean I know if you ever anyone's ever gone to an art college, which I I did for a year, it's one of the most frustrating things you can do because like you were just saying, you're immediately boxed into a corner, and then when you get into that corner, you're then boxed into another corner, and all that creativity is just drained out of you. So when I read your concept and started conversing with each other, it was that very point you just said. I think was one of the, I don't know, genius points of what you're trying to do. Because I remember you first saying to me the idea that the creator doesn't have to be someone just with their music or someone who's good with their hands. It could also be the computer scientist, and I've often believed that. To me, one of the, whenever I look at my phone, I think, wow, the person that did that is a very is a very creative person.
I mean, I would say, I think the creative span goes into everything. I mean, people who, if you just can't, like she was saying, a commune for artists, and, one of the things, a lot of us have our 9 to 5 jobs, and at the same time, our 9 to 5 job isn't necessarily inspiring to the art that we try to create and the messages that we try to bring across. And like what she was saying about having a commune, or even a community where artists can just sort of group together, work together to not only build each other up inspirationally and creatively, but to actually maintain a lifestyle together. I mean, that would be, that in itself, to go to that grassroots of, we're just trying to live. I mean, that would inspire me personally so much more creatively than, day to day 9 to 5, putting up with the bullshit, and, having to fake a smile. Whereas, I'm in a place where I don't have to fake the smile. I'm with trying to make food for that, I really want them to eat, and I really want to work with them and help them, build themselves up just as much as, I hope they want to build me up. Whereas, the 9 to 5, maybe not so much, here and there, here and there.
Well, you said before, Ryan, when we mentioned before that sometimes, that when those moments come of inspiration, if we knew that, we could bottle it and sell it. We don't know. It comes at any point. And that's what I love about the concept of the village, is that, maybe sort of, open it up more and tell us more about it, because it's the idea of not just, one or two specialised people around the unit. It's, well, explain it could be as big as you want to be. Tell us more about it.
I'm sorry. Say your last bit again. I had a lag.
No, it's okay. We had this every week. Google Plus. No, I was saying, I was just trying to explain the idea that what Ryan was just exploring then was that your concept is that all different people are in. Well, explain it more. Explain the dome concept, okay, and the layout of the village.
All right. Yeah, the structures will actually, instead of being the normal brick and stick houses that we live in that get crushed or washed away in storms, everyone will be able to live. All the buildings in the village will be dome structures, monolithic domes, where basically they inflate in air form and blow concrete onto it. They also put it with basalt rebar. If you were to use hempcrete, this would be a permanent structure. It would be stone. But these are nearly disaster-proof. They can withstand hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, earthquakes. They probably can't withstand the whole ground just opening up and swallowing it, unless we figure out levitation. But they can also be airtight, so they can be used. They can be climate-controlled. So you could use it as a greenhouse, and if you pair that with aquaponics, then you can grow any kind of food from any climate all year round, regardless of the weather. Oh dear.
So is the materials for the dome structure, I mean, from what you're saying, my right understanding that they're quite cheap and easy to build in?
I think it depends on where you are. If we were in Europe, hempcrete would be much cheaper. Here in the United States, hempcrete would be exceptionally expensive, just because hemp, the industrial form, is still illegal, just because they want to make the medicinal form illegal. So the price fluctuation would be extremely different. It really depends. There's also things coming out where you can 3D print concrete structures. So there's a possibility that the village could simply be printed, and it may not be that expensive at all. But the idea is to go with the dome. It's a natural. It's the strongest structure in nature. It's the spherical structure. Each resident, like he was saying about the 9-to-5 job, how also Rich just said that he's watching but he's unable to join. If he wanted to join. But all the residents, instead of being stuck doing some sort of 9-to-5 where that's almost not even conducive to creativity, they'll be required to work just a maximum of 6 hours each week to help the village out, which they'll get paid in cryptocurrency. It'll be the village's own currency. And that way they can have as much time as possible to work on their own art, as opposed to being stuck doing so much work for something else and then never being able to stop or focus on their own creativity.
Well, even the 9-to-5, like what I was saying, like it's not about the hours. I think as somebody who's creative, you don't really sit around and just kind of do nothing. Like even when if you are doing that, it is a sort of creative meditation where you are going through the processes of thinking and trying to build. And so it's not about the work hours. Like if I'm not creating or doing something, like I, as well as I'm sure many other people, are more than willing to go out there and do work and put in the effort and go the extra mile. And especially, like, that's just what I was kind of just trying to say, was that if I was doing that in the village sort of concept, it would almost drive me to want to do it more, just because, you know, I can see the everyday buildup from that and what's becoming from it, and seeing, you know, in the lyrics of the Ceiling Demons, you know, seeing that every step and how it's building, you know, not only for the everyday life, but for, you know, the tomorrow, like we were talking about.
Yeah, the idea of keeping the hours down, it's more of, because the village will be self-sustainable, it's not really necessary for someone to work 30 or 40 hours a week just so they can afford the food that they just can grow in their own greenhouse, which each home will actually have its own private greenhouse. So I like to keep the hours down, because if there's enough of us contributing efficiently, then it's really not necessary for that many hours to be worked. If there's 200 hours needed of work done, something, you know, some sort of calculation figures that it'll take 200 hours to do everything that needs to be done in a village, and there's 200 of us, there's a lot of free time left over. So many hands make light work.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I've had the I don't know, the fortune of kind of having to. I've shared with you both when I've lived in South America, and one of the things when we lived in Venezuela, I've lived in two kind of environments like this. One was at the top of called the Grand Savannah, and that was out there, very arid, but the same kind of principle what you said actually works in process in real life. And this is one of the things that I think needs to be told a lot, is that these things can actually work in process. They're not just pipe dreams. You know, all this is being done. And one of the things when we lived on the beach, when we lived in Venezuela, that the idea of what you were just discussing then about how much people would want to work or have to work a week, I'm telling you, when you've got all day and you're surrounded by nature, it's a great incentive to be creative, and it's a great incentive where you want to, not only do you want to make your water supply better, you want to build, you know, sewage systems, and then you go beyond, and then suddenly you're being creative in building projects that help help where you're living. Now I've seen this in process, so that's what, when I read what your whole project, I thought, not only do I know that it's a good idea on paper, which is, the world is full of great ideas on paper, this is a project that will actually work in person, because we, the creative, I don't want to sort of speak for us all, but what we do, like Ryan and both of you were saying, we don't do it for money, we don't do it for ego, we do it because it's just the creative element we love tapping into. It's almost a thing we like doing, it makes us feel alive. So when you're given the ability to do that, everybody will automatically huddle around each other. And how do I know that? Because we're all here. That's what biology and evolution has taught us. And that's what I think is really inspiring about your project, is that you're mixing all these diverse elements of society, the creative people together. I mean, for instance, you're talking about 3D printing. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of 4D printing, where they actually build the thing from nano, cell by cell up. So when you put it in water, it becomes a bump, or you put it in, by grass, it becomes a. Are you aware of this?
I have not heard of that. That sounds fascinating.
Well, with all these things, go and check it out. I mean, it's just on YouTube and stuff. But what I'm trying to say is that your concept is so close to becoming real, because exponentially technology is flying ahead of us. I mean, 2-3 years ago, maidsafe wasn't around, and so they're not even out live yet. And soon your idea, like you said, of cryptocurrency, these are things that technology is helping this bloom. Would you agree?
Yeah. Cryptocurrency was, until I heard about that, my idea was, how am I going to fund this thing? How is this going to work? How am I going to make the whole thing? There needed to be some sort of element of glue, and someone introduced it to me and said, hey, you should check out Bitcoin. And then I was sucked in for like 2 years listening to it. And then they came out with Counterparty, and then Doge Party did their thing, and I was like, oh, well, that's it. I can do exactly what I want it to do as an interim. Like, I wanted to have a currency, but I didn't have the time to make the village and learn how to make a cryptocurrency. But now with Counterparty, I can use that as a sort of segue, which there'll be a currency in the village that will pay the artists, that will pay for things, that help us with inventory. It'll mostly be for operational purposes.
Well, that was the exact synergy that I saw between what we're trying to build at N99, well, we are building at N99, so don't try, we are building at N99.
Yeah.
Let's be positive. And what you're
That's what I'm here for, Tim.
Exactly, my man, exactly. And what you're building in the village, because the two are so synergized to what we do. Because I was like you, I mean, I love Bitcoin, but it's like, when I heard about maidsafe, I thought, wow, this is the opportunity for being paid for the resources that we generate. And then you can see it in a real life action. So when I first told everybody I was telling about the village concept, we were like, well, we're there. Where's this happening? We're, pack the bags, we're gone, because this is exactly what we're talking about. And it's possible through these, steps in technology that are happening right in front of our eyes, like maidsafe. I mean, I'd only heard about what they're doing on the Safe Network and the idea of what we're trying to build. I mean, from what we're trying to build, the sharing. I only heard about that 3 months ago. So I hate to think what the world's going to be like in a year's time when this stuff is launched. It's going to help people like you exponentially.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were going to say something.
No, go ahead.
So do you, like you say, we're paying your people who live in the village per resource generated. That could be linked in with like I say, for a SafeCoin, couldn't it? In essence, I mean,
it could be. It could be linked to SafeCoin. I could use something similar to an implementation of SafeCoin, maybe just privately in the village. There are options. I'm kind of waiting to see how things turn out before I make a decision on that. Since, I mean, there's no need to decide until the village is built. I kind of want to build it in the village. It seems a bit symbolic, I guess, to do it that way. It also I want to let everyone who's living in the village have a bit of a say in just certain factors of the currency, mostly just for the sake of inclusion. Go ahead.
Well, even technology is so fast that by the time it actually gets started up, even if you were to start this up, 6 months from now, who knows what currency is, or cryptocurrency or whatever currency is going to be, top of the pops at the time. It's going to be, technology is so advanced and so changing that you kind of have to stay open on some of those things until that right time and the right moment. And yeah. That's what I have to say about that one.
I mean, if you had the quote that basically says that we as humans are the sex objects for the sex reproduction parts of the machine that's growing.
Well, the machine is always growing. The machine is never receding. So.
What I'm trying to say is, me and you have talked about this before, Ryan. There's all the nightmare concepts of what technology's happened, was going to be. If you watch back in the 80s, it was always going to be, we're going to be overtaken by machines, they're going to destroy us. And what we've seen with the machines, it's just made us more connected, it's made us more, I think, more empathetic. I've said for years, without a doubt, every time the Nobel Peace Prize is up for offer, the internet should take it, because that's brought us more peace to the world than any other human being has ever done.
And I would agree, but at the same time, I think a lot of people, I think there's a misconception of being connected. I think, the whole social media, the Twitter, the Facebook, I think a lot of people on a social aspect think that, being linked into Facebook every single day is, they're somehow connected to their world. And from a real world versus technological standpoint, it's like you're really not connected to your world, because the real connection is people, and being with people and being around people, not just reading a Facebook post that you're reading something on the internet, so the context is always sort of skewed. You don't understand the full mentality of what somebody is saying, because you weren't there for the conversation before, you're not there for the conversation after, you're only there for those maybe 3 to 5 sentences, and you kind of have to base it off that. And I mean, it has brought us together. Like, obviously it's brought me and you together, me and Adia together, all of us, as far as being able to connect and talk. and do these ideas. But at the same time, I think a lot of people, as far as friends and family, you know, if you don't connect on this sort of face-to-face level, and you're just sort of reading posts back and forth, or you're just sort of typing to each other, or texting or whatever, it really loses a lot of meaning and a lot of context, and in a sense, you know, a lot of the connection that's being made. And for me, that's kind of one of the scariest things about technology and where we're going is uh, when do when do certain people realize that line between, you know, this isn't real, this is, you know, just sort of its own pseudo world, if that makes any sense.
Well, I totally agree with you, Ryan. I mean, I think one of the aspects of what I love about the village particularly is that it's getting it's getting back into nature. I mean, I've often me and you have talked a lot in private about, you know, we don't know. One day a massive asteroid could just hit this planet, another super volcano would go off in Yellowstone Park, and do you know what I mean? And we need to get back to the point where we're understanding what it's like to live in the ground and live amongst nature. And that's what I'm about in the village concept. Straight away it was in, well, describe where your first idea of putting it is in there.
I'm considering putting it in Tennessee, if that's what I heard you say correctly. I'm getting a lot of lag today, but I'm considering putting it in Tennessee. There's someone that's suggesting various locations in Scotland. He might be watching right now. He knows who he is, and he's sucked me in on that because there are some islands out there that are uninhabited, that are of the right size. It just needs to be a place that rains, because I can't believe I hadn't even mentioned this. I plan to put a food forest, or plant. There we go. I plan to plant a food forest around the village, not to wipe out anything that's already there, but to just sort of to add to it, along with a few hugelkulturs, which I suppose you could Google that. It's German. It's basically raised grow beds that can basically be raised to the height of a wall if you so desire. They're easier to harvest because they're raised. But
If I wanted to Google that, how would I spell that?
It's Hugelkultur, hugelkultur.
Okay, that's cool.
But really, it needs to be able to support the food forest that I plan to install. It needs to rain, because a primary source of water will be rainwater collection. So anywhere that can support a food forest that rains and that will tolerate a village full of artists would probably work. I'm fairly open.
Well, I can't understand why anyone would think that would work in Scotland. Because we don't have any rain, it's not full of artist types, and it's, you know, no, we haven't got the face either, so no.
I mean, I may be wrong, but I think there are laws in the United States about storing rainwater. I don't know if anybody's heard about that. Is that true? Or?
Yeah, my original location where I wanted to build was Colorado. They have quite a lot of just vacant, flat land out there. I could just start from scratch. They let you have so many wells per acres, and it was all going great. And then I come to find out rainwater collection is illegal, which I find ironic since they get both fires and floods. And so you want to make rainwater collection illegal, but you're getting massive floods. It seems like there could be something causing a balance there if you let people work with it. So I was like, well, I have to scrap that location because we need rainwater. As far as I know, Tennessee doesn't have any restrictions against that, and there's still quite a bit of vacant land out here. It's a pretty big state, but there are a number of states where rainwater collection is illegal, and I can understand, like Nevada. They don't get a whole lot of rain to begin with, but I mean, Colorado is in a desert, and not all of it anyway. Some of it is, but not all of it. So I don't know. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I was just thinking of, like, the weird, you know, we talked last Wednesday, and, you know, or last Sunday, and some of the weird just kind of laws that you have to, you were talking about things that I had never even thought of, and I was like, man, I can't even imagine how many more, probably weird, sort of underground laws and things that you would have to deal with to go into, trying to build, what you're trying to build. And it's just some of the things that, our government and maybe other governments around the world have, sort of like the thing about rain collection and, just something you wouldn't even have thought of until, really it's too late, and then you find out, oh wow, something like that's like I'm not allowed to collect rainwater. Like I don't.
Yeah, Rich says it's illegal in most parts of New Mexico. I know in Colorado there's another one that they have where some pieces of land have the mineral rights separated from the actual land itself, so someone else could own mineral rights to land that you live on, and in some cases I suppose they could come and just start digging on your land because they have the rights. I was like, what? No, and it's really, really expensive to get those mineral rights if they're not already attached to your lands. There's a lot of bizarre laws. I mean, all the way down to, there's some states where it's like illegal to spit or illegal to walk and chew gum, ridiculous stuff like that, and they still exist.
You can't walk a duck on Sunday in a park while it's raining.
Like, oh, you had a problem with that, huh? A lot of people walking ducks.
I don't know whether this is current, but I know it was up to at least a couple of years ago that in Paraguay, because they're trying to sort of save I don't know if you're aware of the Amazon 2020 project, which is basically to clear 2/3 of the Amazon by 2020 for the amount of food that's grown on the planet. Well, the parts of Paraguay, they're trying to hold it back. So, but I was really looking into this quite seriously a few years back, and I never got the money to do it. But they were offering, I think it was something like 100 square meters for like $100, and then you buy a lease on it for 25 years, and then you could. The only restriction they put on you was you weren't allowed to kind of like dig. You weren't, as long as you just lived on it and looked after what was around it. It was that cheaper rent for like all those 25 years. Now I thought maybe that's a place we could look into for the village, because all they want to do is look after the jungle. All you want to do is just somewhere where you can chill in the jungle. So maybe it's a bit of a marriage.
Yeah, possibly. I'm open to any available options, to be honest, because you never know which one will pan out.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to say is that the concept of what you're trying to do, and I think where we're coming from is it's almost that light touch in you. That's why you've chosen the forest. You're not going to go into the forest and chop down loads of trees and build loads of domes. You'll build. I mean, I don't know. Am I right in correctly thinking you're going to build around the trees? I mean,
right. There's a base design where the buildings will go, but if there's a tree in the place where the building's supposed to go on the design, then we move the building. So that's my idea. I don't want to mess with the habitat that's already there too much. I might even go so far as to go in and tell the animals that we're about to start building. It might sound silly, but I feel like that would be the polite thing to do. I mean, that's what you do to human neighbors, is you go, hey, I'm about to build this add-on, so there's going to be a lot of noise. Seemed like it'd be a nice thing to do to animals, and for all we know, they actually do speak English, and they just know what we do if we found out. I have a dog that gives me suspicions, but I mean, I don't want to tear down anything. When I mentioned the hugelkultur, if there are fallen trees, what we do is we take those fallen trees. Basically, the hugelkultur is you take rotting logs and you pile them on the ground, and then you put soil, other brush and things of that nature on top of that, compost, food, mushrooms, whatever, and you put that on top and you grow your plants from that. And the rotting soil actually, the rotting logs tills the soil. It self-tills itself. So it's a pretty efficient way to grow. So a lot of people get down logs and down branches from trees, from storms. And most of the times they call someone out and pay them to run the logs through a wood chipper, and then I don't know what they do with that after that, but it seems like it's a waste. So there might be a campaign to go about and just collect anybody's rotting logs.
Well, that's one of the greatest gifts that nature gives us is that everything can be used again. Oh man, I've lived out in the jungle. Man, there's nothing you can't use and reuse and reuse and reuse. And if we don't use it, nature reuses it because it eventually goes out of the soil. That's what I love about nature, whereas compared to all the metal and the concrete and the stuff that we've created, that basically give it 100,000 years and nature will just destroy the lot of it. It'll take it all away.
And that's why nature loves you too, Tim. It's waiting for you to just break your leg on a hiking trail
Exactly
and
like
then decompose and put your nutrients into the forest and get eaten by a bear. And
exactly, man. There ain't no pretty picture. I fall and break my leg and she's chewing me up. But I mean, it's one of the I don't know. It's one of the things that I kind of really liked about the village was that, I mean, maybe it's just in the way you kind of rendered it in your computer, but I love, for me, as someone like mainly a creative visual painter, I love trees. I don't know what it is about the connection that humans have with trees. I mean, is that something you kind of feel as well, or is that just my feeling?
They're almost like a mirror version. They're a reflection of humans. In a sense, they are our lungs, really. I mean, I don't know, there is something really special about trees, and most people, I think, know this, even if they don't want to say it because it sounds kind of hippy-dippy, but everybody loves a tree. I was quite mad when there was a large tree that was near my grandmother's house, and they had to cut it down. Someone was displeased with the acorns, and they cut this tree down. This tree had to be 70, 80 feet tall. I was like, this thing's probably a couple 100 years old, or at least 100 years old. And that alone is, I mean, the oldest things on the planet apart from those little, tiny little, what are they, water bears or something, are trees. So I don't know, if they could talk, they'd have a lot to tell.
Well, they say that the only thing that can survive, well, it all basically, if it went to an ice age and all the rest happened, it's the trees. Apparently there's some trees over in, I think it's Japan, that grow on this mountain that basically they can grow in minus 30, 40 degrees below. They actually shrivel up, become like a nether, and then the minute it becomes a bit, warmer, boom, they take over. I don't know if that's, but it's amazing that it's trees that will last. And then the other one that always fascinated me about a tree, and it blew my head when I first read this one, was when you think about a tree that it's basically like a human being with its head stuck in the ground because its sex up, its reproductive parts are in the air and its brains are down below. And then you think about how far a tree is integrated into the land. I mean, it's fungi, it feeds fungi which feeds the forest, and without all these, you take that away, and the whole lot just dies. That's what I'm saying, one of the saddest things in my life. I went down to the Amazon and just watching whole areas of the Amazon just plowed, this cut dry, and it just, I don't know, it's almost as your soul. And that's not, I'm not trying to be too hippy-dippy, peace and love man, but when you see it, you just feel like, man, these things have been on this planet, like you said, far longer than we are. We're just a tiny little flash, like Ryan said, man. It's going to swallow me up. I'm nothing. I'm a speck.
Yeah, if an alien species came here, they probably wouldn't assume us to be the lead species. If anything, they'd see humans as like, okay, there's a lot of them, but those have been here for a while and they don't appear to be hurting anybody. Let's talk to them instead. They're just blowing in the wind. Those are trees. Oh, okay. Let's check them out. I mean, I've heard of some, I don't know where this is, but it's like a community of trees where the roots just spread out for hectares. So many, I don't know, trees are fascinating.
That analogy you just made was one of the best things I've ever heard about if aliens came, they would probably talk to the trees because, yeah, the humans would be the ones. I saw it as like, the humans would be the ones like a virus reproducing,
Yep.
killing, multiplying over and over again, and the trees are the ones that are just kind of standing there peaceful, not doing anything, living, breathing. That was a great analogy. I'm going to remember that one.
Well, yeah, like I say, when you think about what goes on underneath the ground of a tree, you know, how it supports fungi, and then you get into the whole of like, you know, fungi. I mean, it just keeps the whole of the forest alive. You know what I mean? They're so rudimentary in about what life is, and that's what I'm saying. When you look out a whole part of the jungle that's been wiped away, you think that's just death. It's going to take absolutely hundreds and hundreds of years for that to come back to life.
Yeah, it's not just the trees; it's a whole ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's like we're tapping into. I mean, why has that happened? It's happened because we all want cheap food. And why do we all want cheap food? Because we all live in places that aren't in nature. They're in these edifices called cities that are unnatural.
Well, apparently there's more important things to spend money on rather than food, apparently.
Or humans, for that matter, human health.
Or other people's food, or other people's running water, or you know, there's the bit there. Tim, I need a big screen TV. I need something as big as my garage. I need something that has surround sound speakers, 10 behind me, 10 in front of me, and 2 in my ears, 1 in my face. I need virtual reality.
Yeah, that's way more important than a house that will survive a tornado. Definitely.
Exactly.
or two or three houses for somebody who doesn't have a house. I mean,
right.
You know.
Go back to bed, America. Go back to bed.
I think I've heard that. What is it? The number of vacant houses outnumber the number of homeless people in this country.
I think I've heard something like that too. Yeah.
That little bit of information alone is messed up all in itself. Put them in the houses.
Well, it's like the one that apparently you could give every single human being a house with a garden, you know, like a bedroom each and all the rest of it, and you could fit every single human in those conditions in the whole state of Texas.
Yeah. I actually did the calculations based on the 3D model of the village that I made. The fly-through video that I sent you is actually a 3D model if you have the link to that. But I did the calculations based on the size of that model and just rounding the land up to 1,000 acres, and factored that I could build enough of these villages to support every single human being on the planet and still have like the landmass of Antarctica left over or something crazy, or 4 Antarcticas. It's like after I did the math based on the population of Earth and how many people I can house in the village, I could build enough villages to house everybody and still have, I don't know, China and all of Europe left over. It was something bizarre. I have to look at it.
But is there room for my big screen TV? That's the main portion.
Yes, there is even room for your big screen TV.
What would you think the maximum size one of your villages could get to population-wise? I mean, have you got an upper limit?
Yeah, upper limit. Let's see, the number of bedrooms I think would support. If there was 1 person per bedroom, it would support about 200. And the bedrooms are large enough to share, because each bedroom has a private bathroom and a decent little closet and a little seating area that actually is your own, also leads to your own private entrance. But if a couple comes, it's actually comfortable to where they could share that, where they wouldn't feel cramped. So even if it doubled, the upper limit could be 400 people. But then a number of those might be used as a bed and breakfast. Some might be used for students, where I foresee perhaps groups of students, maybe from an art school, comes to learn something specific that's being taught there, and they come with their teacher, and it's a sort of field trip, but it's maybe a week or 2, and so they would have a specific location. There's also a little, I love puns, I call it the dormitoris, because it's shaped like a Taurus, but it's a dormitory. So that would be used, but there will also be bed and breakfast, so people can actually come and visit and check the place out and stay there for a week and see how they like it, and then go back and tell all their friends about it, things of that nature. So it could be anywhere from 100 people to 400 people at any one time.
I mean, what you just said then is something I've had this vision for a while. I think that one of steps forward that we can all take is that instead of kids going to school and being taught and almost like just being pushed through exam processes, maybe the way of doing this, I mean, I've heard that they're doing this in some parts of San Francisco as part of the cognitive thought process schools. But they're basically letting kids go in and say, right, what is it that you want to solve? So they may say, oh, I want to solve the ozone. I want to fix the ozone, or I want to fix world hunger. And then they're letting those kids just basically get in a group in a team and just building over time solutions to those problems, not giving them any kind of curriculum or anything like that, and letting them build that up. And what you just said then about the idea that students can come along, that'd be a perfect way of, I kind of see where education can step forward and say, look, take a bunch of people and say to them, look, we've got this problem we want to solve, and then you go down to the village and you can meet the guy who's making a computer down the corner, and there's a guy over there who's a great designer, and let them spend X amount of time there, and that's how we evolve as a species. That's what I love about what you're doing. It's kind of pushing these boundaries and of rules and ways that we've done things before, and it's setting them all aside and saying, no, if you just let people come together, collaborate, and great things will happen. Is that kind of something you would agree with?
Yeah, my idea for education, because I never agreed with the way education was done to us, because it's definitely done to us. You don't have a choice. If you don't go, your parents get in trouble, at least here anyway. My idea was, why not let the kids pick what they want to learn? I don't care how young they are. What do you want to learn today? What do you want to do? I don't care what it is. Do you want to finger paint, or do you want to learn maths? I mean, do you want to learn physics all of a sudden and you're 8? Well, let's get you there. What you'll need to do to understand physics is also you need to understand this, this, and this, but let's go ahead and drop you in physics and let you figure out, it's kind of like if you're reading a book and you come across a word that you don't understand, you go in a dictionary and look it up. You don't wait to read that book until you understand every single word in the English language. So, why do this to the way kids learn? So in the village, there'll actually be all kinds of experimental classes for learning, where you try different kinds of educational things where the kids can pick what they want to learn, and they can join the classes that the adults are in. So if they want to join that particular dance class because it looks like they're having fun, then they can join. And it just be the teacher's responsibility to make sure that they adapt their teaching to the different people that they're teaching, as opposed to trying to do a one-size-fits-all teach. You actually have to identify who you're teaching. That's what makes a good teacher, is knowing how to teach, really. So, I mean, there'll be things that, there was something interesting I heard about. It was a learning technique, and it was more cerebral, really, where all the kids in the classroom will play a drum. The teacher is leading this, and it'll be maybe like a pan drum. What do they call it? It's the hand drum. It's a big round one, and it's got a nice deep sound. I can't think of what it's called at the moment. Hand pan. And all the kids will play at their current heartbeat, and they'll try to, syncopate together, and the teacher will guide them, and they'll close their eyes, and the teacher will guide it to where it's slow to the level of your heartbeat when you're asleep, and then she guides them through, say she's teaching them about a ship, and so the kids will actually take on imaginary roles of different, I'm the ship's mast, I'm the ship's sail, okay, what do you need to fly? I need wind, so it gets them deeper into what they're learning about, because if you imagine you're the ship's sail, you probably learn more about a ship's sail than if you just read about it. So I found this interesting, and I heard this was something they did in Atlantis, whether or not you believe Atlantis existed, but it was something that they taught their school children. So there's all kinds of interesting ways that people can learn, and I think all of them should be explored.
I think learning especially should be something experimental, and one of the things that I've said something, a few things before to Tim about like the American education system, and I think everything should be viewed as some sort of experiment. And when it comes to the American education system, I feel like that's an experiment that has, whether or not you want to say it's failed or succeeded, I think it's run its course. I don't think it's very in keeping with the time and what people are feeling and what people are going through. I think it's very, I almost want to say archaic. you know, I really learned as far as like the things that have brought me here to this point to where I am talking to you and how I'm talking to you and, you know, being known by Tim and the Ceiling Demons and being on this podcast were things that I did not learn in school. I learned them after school and I learned them on my own. And, you know, that's just, to me, I don't want to say it's a failure of the education system, but I think there is, you know, definite flaws, and I think there are things. I think we should be experimenting with education as long as, you know, the heart's in it and the education's in it and the facts are there and the truth. And, you know, as far as, you know, sticking with those boundaries, I don't see why we can't go into the other realms. And like you were saying, you know, you're going to learn so much more about a ship when, you know, you're imagining yourself as the mast or as the, you know, any part of it, and just thinking, you know, what is my purpose as this part of the ship. And, you know, as a kid, I think a kid could really get into that and really, you know, close their eyes and see it because they are so, yeah, untamed and so imaginative. I think they could really get into that and really learn from that and understand and really get the empathy that I think Tim thinks is kind of lacking in the world. but I think that's how it could happen, is, you know, just experimenting with the heart and the mind and things like education and the village and, yeah, all that stuff.
Right, I think you're right. I think imagination is the key to that consciousness that we try to tap into, or we tap into when we're creative. I mean, I think the best, like, you know, going back to teachers, I think the best teacher, as by no mistake, when you go around the world, what do you see in every tribe in the world? You don't see teachers, you see guides. And they could be at any age, with any person, they could be usually the oldest person in the village, but they're the guide. And they're so unlike any other teaching ones that I went through at school. I never, you know, I tell the guy sat in front and was reading a book to me and telling me learn that fact. And then I remember going abroad and sitting I went to Africa and seeing real, like, wow, that's guides. You know, these guys aren't telling you what to do, they're just a guide. And that tied in with the education is one of the keys to how we see differently to maybe our generation before us, and, well, whoever it is before us, we're seeing things differently. And we're right, because we're seeing it that way. So nobody can tell us we're wrong.
Yeah, I'd have to say the world's absolute best teacher is nature.
Hmm.
There's so much that you could learn. I mean, we already learn how to do everything we need to do by observing the people around us as we're children. We learn how to walk by watching other people walk. We learn how to talk by copying them. So it seems like there's so much to learn from nature just by observing. Like I think I was saying, I may have been talking to you the other day when I was saying that one could learn where to place one's house if you observe how far the tide comes in, or how often a hurricane comes through, or how often a tornado comes through a particular area. You could learn from that and say, all right, the tornado took out this type of house, perhaps I should build something stronger. And you adapt, you learn from nature, you observe. There's so much information out there that just gets overlooked.
Well, that's why I was very, you know, tapping into what you were saying earlier on about, you know, the maximum size of the village, because there is the idea that 150 people was basically, if you went through back all of history, that's basically the optimum number that human beings can sort of function on. And like I was saying, and that's nature, because you could look at, they say, if you look at cells, they're saying it's about 150. You know, it's almost like there's always an optimum number, and it's about 150 all the way through nature. But then we look at cities that, man, look at the cities in your part of the world. I mean, you've got, what, 20 million in LA, you've got how many Gothams, how many in New York. I mean, these are natural processes that I think have caused a lot. That's why I was saying, I think that these are the problems that have only helped break this empathy chain, and they've made people miserable, because they're just people stuck in boxes and tied to our natural situations, and they need to go back into the forest and understand what nature is. Like Ryan was saying, nature, and I don't mean any offense by this, nature's a bitch, and she'll chew you up and spit you out. You know, and that makes you aware, and that's what got us to where we are now. And we've had this little blip for maybe 100 years where we all kind of live like we are now, and we've almost become, this is what it's going to be forever and ever and ever. When in reality, you know, one hit by an asteroid, one volcano, one anything, and we're back in the woods. And the people who are going to survive are going to be the people now living in the woods, not us.
Yeah, it never made sense or felt natural to me that in order to eat, I have to get in a car and go to a building and pick food out of a freezer and take that home. And before I can do that, I have to make sure I have enough money to do that. And then you also have to make sure you have enough money for your shelter. It's like, wasn't there a time where you didn't have to have enough money to do this, and this, where you could actually pull food off a tree? And you could formulate your shelter from the materials found in nature. Oh yes, there was that time, and something happened, and we just got segmented from it. I want to bring that back, and I feel like you said, the cities with so many people, because that 150 number, that will be the core group of residents. Probably the permanent resident number will sit around 150. Anything in excess of that will be visitors, people coming and going, people checking it out, short-term residents, someone who came for 3 months because they really wanted to focus on this one project and they needed a place to do it, instead of trying to have $20,000 so you can go to France for 3 months and sit in a foreign country. You just come to the village and make some money while you're there. And, so I really wanted to, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No,
But, I mean, okay, I remember where I was going, but basically that what you were saying about the big cities, that it seems like it would almost make more sense if people were in smaller, more like-minded communities that just cooperated with one another, as opposed to being forced into these things where majority rules, and majority could be 60%, so 40% of the people are angry because majority won, and you somehow call that fair. It seems like it just worked better if we were in a place where, hey, this seems like a nice place that fits the kind of lifestyle that I'm seeking. And then there's a place over there that actually trades with us because we're making something that they want, and they're making something, things of that nature. So.
Well, it's exactly like the safe net that we're building our N99 on. That very principle, that it's just like ants, and you share information and you help each other, and the synergy is so perfect, because I think one of the great experiments that we're about to find out, and I can't sit with any certainty know what's going to happen, but they're about to, when they switch on the safe network, they're about to connect, I don't know, in principle, the biggest ever computing power ever, because it's going to have the generation power of what they're going to generate from that. It's going to be immense. And that's going to be a very big experiment that, well, it's like what, it's going to open a lot, I think it's going to open a lot of doors. And I think one of the things I loved about what you were just saying then about the like you said, 150 core people, is that we've tapped about this when we've spoken before, that obviously certain parts around the world will have almost specialist people because of the areas they're in. Because, if you've got a lot of water or a lot of wind, then it's almost convergent to make a lot of wind technology or a lot of solar technology. So it could almost be like going back to what, if you took a time machine back, what tribes have always done. They had little tribes that lived maybe 20 miles away, and over there they were ironsmiths. And over here was a bronze maker, and over here was a wall maker. That's how I kind of see the future, because I think it's almost like returning back to, like you said, back to a more naturalistic way of living.
Yeah, and just all we have to do is carry a little bit of the technology that works with us, and it'll almost be like all that craziness in the middle didn't have to happen. It's like we can. I used to wonder what would have happened if things have gone a different way for my own ancestors here, the Native Americans here in the United States, and would they have eventually developed internet and vehicles, and would it have been solar powered? Would they have gotten the quantum energy? It's like you never know, because they were so in touch with nature. There's just a matter of time before somebody stumbles onto electricity. Living in nature with all the lightning that you have, there's a matter of time before, circuits happened. So it could have happened in that context, but I almost wonder now if maybe it will still go that way, that there's this big hiccup where we lived in cities and fought all these wars, and then we circle back and realize maybe not so much, maybe tribes were cool, but let's keep the internet too. And this electricity thing is pretty cool, so let's hang on to that. And so you get a slight upgrade from something that was working that just went offline for some time. So
Well, I think it's one of the most arrogant things of the people of our age is that we think we're the pinnacle. I mean, I've seen some of the structures around the world, and it's like how they've been made. They're still trying to palm off stories about slaves or whatever. But some of the things, it's like, you almost imagine that if the people who build them would look at, if we could go back in time machine, we'd always stood in front of them and go, oh, what, you thought we made this with slaves? No, we've got sonic technology where we can move it with our mind. You thought we did this with slaves? And that's what I'm saying. It's almost like the arrogance of our generation to think this is the pinnacle of all technology, when right out there could be something that we don't even know yet. Do you know what I mean? Like it was before we discovered electricity. How many thousands of years have we been walking around with electricity around us and nobody had worked it out? Then one person discovers it and it's like, oh, we know it all now. How do we know there's not another? Well, there is. It's not how we know, there is. Because look at the universe around us. The forces that work that are immense. And how many of them do we use? Minimum.
And for all we know, those people, because there's pictures of light bulbs in Egyptian tombs, and they try to say, oh, it's just a flower. No, that's clearly a light bulb. It's a big light bulb, but it's clearly a light bulb. So for all we know, the way they built it was some sort of gravity generator that they actually powered, and they had electricity, and something went wrong. And because imagine if you had an entire civilization, like if the entire civilization of humanity was wiped out down to a couple 100,000 people, how much of what we've created would actually survive in 100 years? How much would we even know existed? Like 1,000 years from now, people might make the internet again and go, woohoo, we figured out something new. And it's like, no, they did that 1,000 years ago. You just don't know about it because everybody was too busy trying to continue surviving. So for all we know, everything that's been done now, that's happening now, happened before. And we're just repeating. There's no way that this is it. What was it? I think Bill Hicks said, we didn't stop at thumbs. Thumbs is not the end of our evolution. There's so much more to come. So to think that our technologies, we have Facebook and tablets. I hate touchscreen phones. I have fingernails. I can't touch them. It's not that I have fat fingers and I touch too many. I literally can't touch a touchscreen phone, and it drives me insane. And people just love them. It's the best thing in the world. It's not. We could do better. That was one thing we tried. Let's do something else. Let's try everything.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I know every piece of work I do, that's never the best one. That's just like, shit, that's another one. I'll get one. And I'm always wanting to get better. That's the point. I mean, it's the same argument back in the day. Oh, well, Betamax is better than VHS. Well, you didn't. You lost. That's what I mean. We're always moving on.
Well, I think a lot of it nowadays is like the promotion of it. Like when somebody creates something nowadays it's almost like they have to, they have to go out there and promote it as if it is the best thing that they've ever done. And then, you move on to your next project and I did my last project and, right after I did it, I had to go out there and say this was my best project ever. So I think it's one of those things that hinders the creative process where you go into your next project thinking like, this is going to be my best project ever. And, that's something that I don't do personally, because I go into so many different mediums that I just look at everything as like, this is going to be the weirdest, most far out thing I've ever done. I can't wait to do it. And then I go out and I do it, and it is the most far out, craziest thing I've ever done. And then, by the time I get done with it, I've already started 2 more ideas that I think are going to be even more crazy and even more far out. And it's the seeds. You plant them, and, they just keep growing, and, more fall from the tree, and then you keep going, and then more fall from the tree. And then after a certain amount of time, I'll be able to look back. And, I can look back now at all, my stacks of my notes and my scripts and my music and stories and poetry and all that stuff, and I can see the forest that I'm starting to build, and I know as I keep going, it's going to keep getting bigger and keep getting bigger and keep getting bigger. But one of the things that I hope to get out of it is being able to eventually bring it out to the world, build my own village, and then hopefully get more people to go into the village of my creativity in my mind. And life is people, and that's really what we want, is just to bring us all together. And I think that, to me, is one of the greatest concepts of the village. Is that's what I've been doing on Twitter, is saying, like, I've been saying since day one on Twitter, like, if anybody needs anything, I'll do anything for anyone. If you want a beat for a rap song, if you want some if you want me to do punch-ups on a script, if you want me to do music if you want me to do a theme song, whatever, like, just let me know and I'll totally help you, because I really want to be there for people. And I think that, to me, that's one of the coolest concepts of the village, is that it's people for people, and it's a really, really cool concept.
No, it's just, as Bill said, man, there's two paths in life. There's a path of fear and there's a path of love, man. And love's the only way to go. I mean, we're sounding really hippy-dippy tonight, aren't we, people?
Oh, that's probably my fault. It's the feminine energy. I've brought in the love.
We're gonna Tim, rename the podcast to "Trees Are People."
Yeah, man, trees are people too.
But it is so true, because honestly, I mean, like, it's the same. I mean, I think one of the things that creative people suffer from the most is attachment to the work they have. It's like, they're just illusions. They're things that are gone. I mean, man, I love my paintings and stuff, but they're just pieces of oil on canvas. It's the idea that I've got out, and the fact that everyone sees it is what I do it for. I don't do it for anything other for reason for that. And I think, like Ryan was just saying then, it's that attachments can sometimes bring down the creative process a lot. Whereas what you're trying to do is, which is why we're trying to build n99, somewhere you can just give it away. My fear of what we're trying to do with technology, what we're tapping into earlier on, is that nobody's doing. I said this to you the other day, Adia. There's nobody is putting this in stone. Like you said, in 100 years' time, who's going to know what the cloud is?
That thing over our heads. I know exactly what a cloud is. It drops rain on us. What are you talking about? Oh, goodness.
It's true, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, like history taught us, I mean, they burned down one library in Alexandria, and all that knowledge was just wiped out. Mm. And it could easily happen again now. I thought this for so long that, like you said, one wipeout of like last Sunday. Just a little technical hitch, and that's it. We're all back to, power goes out for 5 days. We need to be putting something in stone. The quicker we get your village built, we get some stonemasons in there, chipping away all our knowledge on those stones, the better.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, etch it in the domes. All the world's information. That would actually be an interesting work of art if all the domes had some sort of engraving of various valuable pieces of information. That would be somebody's life work, I imagine. And if they wanted to do that, feel free, as long as you don't hurt the integrity of the dome, which they shouldn't be able to if they... See? New ideas.
Exactly. It's always
actually
new
quite
ideas.
cool.
I mean, the other one that, I mean, if they go to your website, they'll be able to know more about this, but we might as well talk about it now. You're also doing, which I want you to talk about more about the auditions. So explain more about what you mean, the whole concept around the auditions for the villages.
Okay, so basically, the way I had to do the audition, because I'm going to include every single art, it seemed like I'm calling an audition because artists are used to auditions, and an application sounded a bit dry. But it's almost, you could almost equate it to like a personality test. The key to the survival of the village is how the people interact with one another more than anything else. It's how they get along. And so the only way to determine really if people are compatible, apart from cramming them in together and just seeing what happens, is just a slight, I don't know, a slight personality quiz. So basically, there's a lot of questions where it's almost like an ongoing litmus test or word association, just things of that nature, where really, if you're genuinely interested and you do the audition, chances are you'll probably get into the village. It's almost like troll repellent. It's a long, elaborate thing that's kind of like a personality quiz, and it's really just to see, are you that interested, or are you just looking to get away? Because we need people who will contribute to the village, who will actually be honest and compassionate with empathy, because the decision-making process could be long and tedious if there is a disagreement, because it's going to require that we all agree. When it's something really big and important, everyone will be required to agree. And if you have a group of people in there who just want to disagree, or who are stuck in doing that, I don't want to say it, it's kind of a stupid idea, then we're not going to get anywhere. So the audition is really just to identify if people can handle that kind of experience, because it's more than just a village, really. It's something that I think needs to work, something that has to happen. So I want to ensure that the people living there understand what it is that's being built, what's how it's running, the fact that there are rules that will have to be followed. It won't just be some open thing where you come in and hang out and don't do anything and bring all your friends. So it's almost, the audition is really more of just kind of like a first hurdle, if anything. It's just a simple test. There's also auditions for, there's going to be a story about the village, an RPG, sort of a role-playing game type thing. It'll be in text, and the auditions will be for writers, character artists as far as illustrators are concerned, because each writer will control probably just one character for now, and they'll be living in a fictional version of this village, and it's an exploration of a life in that village. And so there'll also be an audition for writers to do that, and basically the audition for that is you create a character, and that's your audition. The character artist audition, which I have to get the sample images up, but basically after everything is written, I'm going to turn it into a comic, and then after that I'm going to turn it into a web series, an animated series, and I'll be doing the animation, but I'm not much for drawing, so I'm letting other people do the character artwork. And basically the audition for that is you take my 3D character and make her a 2D character, and really it's the one that I like is the one that gets to do the character art. There might be 2 or 3 character artists depending on what an artist can or can't do, or what an artist prefers to do. I think it'll be interesting because there'll be a collaboration of different types of art, different types of writers. You'll have an outcome of different types of stories, and it's sort of my way of telling the world about the village without going, listen to this project I'm creating. It's kind of, check out this animated series. Oh yeah, I'm going to build something like that. And so those are those particular auditions. So I don't want anybody to be put off by the length of the audition. It's really there just to keep the trolls away.
And like you said, one of the worst things for any project, I mean, if anybody achieves anything, when they go out and try to build anything, is that they have people like we're saying earlier about, like in nature, there's the ticks, the parasites, the people just like you said, will just feed on what you're trying to. It's feeding on your human energy, that positive energy you're trying to put out. And like you said, it can destroy. I've seen it amongst little projects I've seen that when I did South America, that 1 or 2 people came in, and before you know it, that negative energy just went. And it's a battle we're always in, the positive and the negative. We're trying to be creative and be positive, and like you said, that's why you have to have that audition process. One of the things I was going to say with the audition one, are you going to be auditioning people who are like specialists in botanics and stuff like that?
I'm sort of just letting those people come. I'll probably seek out people for consultation, people with specialties like that. If they come to the village, then that's fantastic. But I probably won't audition people for those type of specific things. I check, like, if it's something that is really important, like someone who can handle the repairs to the generator that gives the village power, I'd probably want to check and ensure that that person knows what they're doing before I let them handle the village generator. But for artists, software developers, there'll be a section on there where you'll say what kind of art you do, and you can link to any galleries or whatever sources of that art that there is, but the focus is really on the person. It's on the artist and whether or not they'll be compatible with the village. And that's why I did the one word. There's honesty when you're limited to responding to something with so few words, and I don't mean like Twitter. You only have 140 characters. That kind of honesty. I mean, if somebody asks you a question and you can only answer with one word, you have to choose that word wisely if you want to convey what it is you're trying to say. If you have to do that 100 times, there's going to be a point in there where you lose the ability to do anything manipulative. It'd be a lot easier to just be completely honest. So if people are honest, the audition will go fast. But if they're trying to write what they think we want to hear, whoever's, the ones that are going to be looking at the auditions, they'll probably have a heck of a time of it. So there's a tip for anybody out there. It's just be honest, and it'll go by really fast. Don't try to write what you think I want to hear. I'm interested in diversity of individuals, as long as all the individuals are compassionate. What is it? Be excellent to each other.
Exactly. I mean, it's. I don't think it's any.
Was that Bill and Ted?
Yes, it
Be
was.
excellent to each other.
Yes, it was. Did I date myself?
I caught that.
Am I giving away my... Sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
That was awesome. I'm sorry, that was awesome. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that it's kind of like no mistake that a lot of the tribes that are living this life right now, are living in environments and jungles or tribe kind of life right now. They tend to have, as far as bringing up some of the botanics, when we lived in the one when I went to Venezuela, there was just an old lady, and she knew everything about plants. I mean, I got all sorts of cuts and stuff, and she always had a plant solution to it. And I was just thinking, it's something that is so essential that if you're going to live in the kind of a forest condition, you need someone that I think personally, and this is just a suggestion from my angle, that you maybe need someone in there who's kind of aware of natural plant solutions. And that's what maybe it's something that I think would be essential to any kind of village. I would love that, and maybe even a shaman. Someone who can give them, so if we're unsure about someone, send them to the shaman here, so he'll find out they're telling the truth and if they're dodgy.
Yeah, that's actually a key thing to have, is someone that knows the plants. If possible, as many people as I can get. I'd probably consult, maybe I could hire an Ayurvedic doctor of some sort. So there are plenty of people who grow up learning that from their parents. Like, this is their parents' job, and from a young age their parents teach them about different plants. So fortunately there are still people out there with a wealth of plant knowledge. And I mean, there's a quote, and I won't name because everybody knows whose quote it is, but it's basically that the planet, and I'm paraphrasing, but that Earth provides everything that we need. Not everything that, it provides for every man's need, not every man's greed. But in reality, it really does. I mean, any illness that exists, anything, there's a plant for it. The planet has produced a solution to your problem. There's literally cures for cancer out there. People know what they are. They're plants, and a couple of them are illegal. And who wonders why? But I mean, yeah, the earth will give you every single thing that you need for whatever your problem. Any sickness that exists, there's a plant that can fix it. So and that's one thing I should point that out about the villages, because we'll be on a rainwater collection system that will have its own. But I have a filtration system and a sanitized water, things of that nature. But you'll loop that around because it'll be on our gray water system, so you probably don't want to put any chemicals into your own water supply in your own personal home, because you'll be on yours. So if you did do that, you would only be tainting your own personal water supply. But you really don't want to do that. And I mean, if you're worried about like shampoos, because some people use shampoos and things of that nature with chemicals in it, guarantee there's something that came from nature that can do it way better.
Damn right. 100%. No, that's 100%. That's absolutely true. I mean, one of the things, one of the great synergies that I loved about the village and exactly what we're talking about was that with the turning on of the safe network, the idea that like my image has got all the nodes. I mean, I know it's something I've heard David Urban particularly talk about on some of the videos. Is the idea that he wants to connect people in this safe environment, so they can basically, a doctor in the jungle in, I don't know, Papua New Guinea can talk to someone over here, and we can all share this information without having to go through the filters and the blocks, which is going to be this is another one of these great evolutionary steps that's going to change the world. Because if we can have people all around the world talking, so we like to say in your village, we can have someone like me, oh, I can't get hold of that information. If we've got the internet and we've got the ability to jump onto this network, wow, I've got all that information at my fingertips, which is going to be a great advance, because at the moment you have to go through peer-reviewed studies, and you don't know what like we said, we don't know what's true and not true. We know, I've heard arguments for every disease. I've heard arguments that AIDS is man-made. I've heard that AIDS is natural. I've heard Ebola's man. Who knows? Because we've been told it by the centralised system, aren't we? And I love the idea of what you're saying is that we'd be able to connect people and experiment, and like you said, because nature will give us every answer to every solution. It's true.
Yeah, nature knows what it's doing. That's why it prevails.
If we don't kill it, it'll be long here after us. So.
I don't think we can kill it. I think if we put forth an actual effort to try to kill nature, I think nature would win. To be completely honest, I mean, you look at a tornado. We don't know how sentient nature really is.
I feel like if there was an asteroid coming and it was gonna hit Earth, I feel like if there was a government that had the balls enough to say something like, you know what, like maybe it's a good idea if we just let it hit Earth. I think they would let it, and I think they would be able to like propagandize enough people into being like, you know what, they know what they're doing. They're gonna let it hit us, and we trust them. So. Just when the lava comes, duck and cover, and all right.
The way our media goes over here, that's not really a far-fetched idea. Because it seems like they can convince people anything.
Well, I'm saying more. I mean, the other sort of flip side to that is, I mean, do you remember last year when that comet flew into Russia and Siberia, and they didn't even know that was coming? Well, if they didn't tell us, did they? Do you know what I mean? It's a flip side of that. And like, I've seen stuff falling out of the sky thinking, wait a minute, whoa, we're so vulnerable. We're just tiny little specks on this rock that, and this, like you said, nature doesn't give a toss. It'll carry on and the plants will grow. It's like the old X line, man. Do you know what I mean? The nature will go on. We're just a little fractional speck in time, aren't we? Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's not to say that we can't mess it up, because we're doing a fine job of messing things up, but
damn right.
And all the crazy storms that we get, it might be nature's reply of don't really appreciate what you're doing.
Well, either way, it's more of a case of like you were saying earlier on. I mean, even if it was. Like you're saying, the tornado comes, but if you live in a place where you're used to tornadoes and you build around that, you'll survive. But the problem is we have these massive cities, and then the tornado comes in, it doesn't know what these things are, it's just another thing in its way, and we'll get all upset and go, oh, Mother Nature's so bitter towards us. It's like, no, this is a natural cycle of life. But the trouble is you're building these edifices that are like 100 feet high and made out of glass, and wondering why you get so many people destruction. It's like, come on, think about it, people. Think about it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about. You see all those neighborhoods over in out west in the Midwest where they get flattened year after year, and it just bugs me. I'm like, how long do you have to keep rebuilding the same thing before you come to the realization that something needs to change? And if you still want to live there, if you like it there, that's fine. But build a house that will survive the tornado. By all means, please. I'm so sick of people like telling stories of how many people died because they were living in something they could have survived. All those people that died in tornadoes for the past 50 years at the very least really could have survived if they had just lived in a structure that was built to survive a tornado. And I feel like that's just common sense. Build a structure that's adapt, be in harmony with nature. That's my that's my point here.
Well, who decided to build the line of trailer parks right in the middle of Tornado Alley? Like, it's called Tornado Alley, and
It's like building a low-lying house, and it's just terrible.
Yeah,
It's
but
so many things.
well, like one of the things, like when people look back on history, and you always feel like you're so smart, and people from back then were so stupid, and I feel like even now, or maybe 20 years from now, somebody can watch a movie like Twister with Bill Paxton, and they can be like, you know what? If these people know that there are tornadoes, why the hell do they build their barns out of wood and make them so tall? Like, I don't understand it. It's like they're building fodder for the tornado to just blow shit up. Like, I mean, that's what that whole movie was just, stuff blowing up. And if you come around my area, a lot of the stuff is just like tall barns, tall wood buildings, tall, things that can be easily crushed by nature. Very
Dude,
good thing.
Dude, I felt exactly the same way. I told you that a couple, 2 or 3 weeks ago over here. 60 people voluntarily walked into it and took Ebola, actually Ebola into their bodies, and the idea being that if it's in a little small proportion, the body will vaccinate against it, and all, because we're such a terrible situation. This is what we used to do, rush it all out. And I thought, haven't you watched 28 Days Later? Watch the own films you make, it's one of our best films, and watch the film, people. It's the same with the Japanese. They build nuclear plants right by the water. Watch Godzilla, people!
Hopefully our generation, or the generation after us, someone's got to learn. So someone has to learn eventually.
Well,
right?
you hope so. But it taps into what Ryan was saying earlier on, what I've been talking about for ages, when Bill talked about. People they want to go home, watch their big screens, sit and watch Xbox, and wonder what Justin Bieber's up to this week. That's the trouble. That's the reality. So us talking in the podcast now, but we know the realities. We know that more people are watching tonight some shitty crap on TV than they're sitting and listening to this. And how does that happen?
So Tim, what is Justin Bieber up to this week? I know a lot of our audience is wondering. You're the Justin Bieber expert.
Wait, didn't he leave a monkey in Germany?
I think I heard something about that. He's like I don't know. He's like some sort of like weird Saturday morning cartoon character that's like he's always up to some sort of antics. He's always getting himself into some sort of trouble, and he's like a one-man Dukes of Hazzard, and it's like, how's this boy gonna get himself out of this pickle this time? He done left a monkey in Germany.
Exactly, man. But we laugh about it, but that's the truth, though, isn't it? I mean, it's the truth. And for whatever reason, there's too many people, and that's what we're saying. That's the problem. What's causing, like you were just saying then, will we ever learn? Well, we're not going to learn if we're sitting at home watching X Factor, are we? And that's all choice. I mean, I've written this before. Nobody is forcing anybody to sit tonight and watch X Factor. Nobody's forcing to go and do these things. It's their own choice. And I've always been fascinated about why. Why are we here talking about this and other people aren't? I mean, that's always been because we've all grown up in the same world. We've all got the same. We're surrounded by the same bullshit. All of us. My TV's full of the same crap your TV's full of. Trust me. That is probably all your channels.
And I actually watched some of that crap. I plan to watch The Walking Dead later. I mean, I enjoy a good bit of entertainment, but there's a balance to be had there too, right? I mean, and also there's a level of taste. I'm sure. How many more singing competition shows can the world really take? And I'm not asking that as a challenge to the people who make these shows. I don't want to know the answer to that. It's yeah.
Well, there's a difference between relaxing and watching, turning off and watching some, whatever on TV for an hour, and then there's a difference between that and there's I don't know. I mean, Ryan tapped into his film really well. That whole idea, it's been a zombie. You're just dead to the world. You're in that little room, and your world is as big as what that little TV screen says your world is, and there's nothing wrong in like anything, trying anything in moderation, anything you want to do, but to sit and watch. I see people that's they sit and watch hours and hours and hours. It's not doing you any good.
Well, like the mainstream, like I've had my problems with it, whatever. But when it comes down to it, anybody can watch it. Absolutely anybody can watch something on mainstream and get something entertaining out of it. It sucks you in. It draws you in. That really is what it's there for. And as far as like studying it, if you want to get into storytelling or of any kind, mainstream is usually the way to go because they try to suck you in every split second. They will cringe in a review if you say something about it was boring at a certain moment or there was a lull during it, or they want that instantaneous keep you going, keep you going, keep going. And it, as an audience member, it does keep you going. No matter who you are, it does keep you going. But at the same time, like, I don't know anybody personally around me that has really ever watched a silent film. Silent films are some of the they're fairly complex to watch. I mean, you have to really be able to sit there and try to study and try to learn something at a slow pace. And it's something that's not necessarily presented to you in, a million words per minute. It's slow. You have to absorb it. It builds, and then you find out that it's so complex and it's so complex. Me and Tim have talked about Metropolis. Like, to try to explain to people, something like the silent movie Metropolis is, you can't do it. It's so otherworldly that you just have to. Everyone kind of experiences it on their own, but we kind of all build this sort of same message that's going around inside of it. And that's, to me, one of the things with the mainstream is that it's so fast, and there's nothing against it. It is there to do its job. And it's just like, I can hate on McDonald's or Burger King or all the fast food in the world. If you put one in front of me and you really force me to eat it, I'm not going to say, like, this tastes disgusting. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure I'm sure they taste awesome. That's what it's there for. That's why they sell millions of burgers, because they taste great. But at the same time, I don't want it, I don't need it, I'm not going to be a part of it.
No, it's exactly it, right? I mean, the whole of that is done for that very reason, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, like we were saying before, it's all about choice, and people have the choice, and it's what you do with the choices you have. I'm not being, but we're all here tonight talking about this, and we're not the only three people in the world. And if we were the only three people in the world, well, good or not to be the only three people in the world who are doing it, because because I tell you what, we're not coming out of anything that's not in that collective unconsciousness that we always talk about. That element we all talk about. I mean, like, all three of us are creative people. I mean, I draw mainly. Ryan, I'm just trying to generalise it, but Ryan generally does it in film. I mean, what you're doing is in. What would your area be called now? Is it computer rendering? I don't want to give it the wrong pronunciation. What is your area of that? What you did for the website, the Little Sophia? What is that general area called?
Graphic art. I guess digital art, perhaps.
Okay.
The rendering, I guess some call it 3D rendering, some call it 3D art. To be honest, I don't really know how they categorize it, because it depends on what the outcome is. In one instance, like the video, that would be called 3D animation, I suppose, because it's moving. But if I take a still image, it's just a 3D rendering. So yeah, they overlap, but it's mostly 3D.
Well, I mean, that's in essence. I mean, like I was saying about Metropolis. I mean, that in essence was a lot of basic. Again, it was animation. Am I right in thinking that there was a lot of animation used in that film, wasn't there?
Metropolis was so. There was so many techniques going on in there. I mean, I'm sure at some points I believe there was, but I actually don't think there was a lot. I think from what I remember, Fritz Lang was after he did Metropolis, he did a movie called Dr. Mabuse the Gambler, which I believe was the first one to sort of use an overlay of animation, and it was really only words. I can't remember the word. It was like a Chinese name, but it was like it was just scribbled kind of on the screen, and they overlaid it into one of the images, and that was kind of like the first animation scene on a silent film. But I don't think they used a lot of animation during Metropolis. I believe that a lot of that was like really there, whether it was forced perspective or models, but or matte paintings or whatever. But I believe it was all fairly legit.
Cool. Well, I've just seen the time, so I'm going to wrap this up. But I just want to go, particularly just anything you want to sort of say, finish on, feel free, because I have the last word.
I don't know. Check out the village. It's creatureconduitsanctuary.net. See what you think about it. Anybody out there who's listening?
I mean, and obviously you can find you on Twitter and Facebook and.
Not so much Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. That's Adia Aira. That's the same as my Google Plus name. Google Plus, Twitter, and the website. Excuse me.
Like I said, I mean, one of the great things that I was fascinated with, because I think there's I keep saying it, I mean, I was talking about the age of the creative is rising. And I'm seeing it in so many forms and so many expressions everywhere else. And this is a truthful statement. When I saw what you were doing in the village, I was like, it was a pure synergy moment. And it's one of those great moments in your life where you have like, wow, someone's actually, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, none of us knew each other. Do you know what I mean? That's what I love about what Ryan was saying. It's life is people. This is an expression of what we're talking about. You know, it's not my idea. It's not Ryan's idea. It's not Adira's idea. It's nobody's idea. It's all our ideas. And if we can just all connect and we can just all help each other and push each other along, which I mean, the open call to you. I mean, anytime you want to come on, please feel free. And anytime, you know, we're helping you out in every way possible. And these are the ways we can all connect with each other. And I do sort of see a future where what we're building in n99 and what you're doing with what you're doing in the village and a lot of other things that are coming up, we're all gonna, I don't know, we're all gonna sort of merge and we're gonna change the world. We will change the world. And that's my final word. I mean, Ryan, anything you have to say, my friend?
I think you summed it up pretty good there, Tim.
Okay. Well, I just got a quick promotion because I did have a chat with the boys from the Cinema. They're playing live on the 31st, Halloween night, and I was talking to America, so it doesn't really bother me too hard, but they're playing Halloween night in Richmond, so I know the viewers or whatever, anyone who's listening to this, demon fans out there, please go and check them out. The Fold are also playing some gigs coming up in November. Other than that, just keep going, and as we always say, life is people. It's been a pleasure talking to you tonight, Adia. Absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. I'd close with saying that change is happening now.
Thank you. I can't think of anything better way to say it all. That says it all. Life is people.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Life is people.